Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica here with JP of Ganbatte Fitness. Today we are going to talk about stress management. JP is a world-class athlete. You're going to Worlds next year.
Correct.
Triathlete, Ironman length triathlons, and up from there, all that crazy stuff. So JP knows a lot about stress management. I'm going to ask JP some questions about stress management, and then I'm going to compare it to the way that I would think about the topic as well, because we can always learn from each other.
Stress management for me is how does someone handle stress on events or in long periods of time. A good example is when I'm racing, the amount of tools I have for myself for me to get to move forward. So if I'm doing a marathon, let's just say, it's all about handling my speed. If I go too fast, what do I do when I break down mentally and physically? What happens when I hit a certain threshold? What are the tools I've learned in training to get me across that finish line?
So what are your techniques for surviving mentally for the long endurance events that you do? Because I find people can be strong, but the mental part is the breakdown in extremely long rides.
Correct.
I've ridden 250 miles a day on a bike before,
right.
And you go through some serious dark nights of the soul about every 45 minutes. So I don't know how you manage to do it for this long on the volume that you do.
One way to do it is actually doing it, right? That's the best way to look at yourself like, oh shit. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Yes, I have allowed to say that. Okay, so like I've done a 20-mile bike ride. That's how it felt. Now I know when I do it again, now I know how to attack it. So that's one way to go about stress management, by doing it.
Just by doing it. Do it.
And learn from there.
Train it. Mm-hmm. So you can learn where the points are where you're going to have the panic attacks and the freakouts.
Correct.
What else?
Doing it is one. Second is get a coach who understands the task at hand. Your coach is supposed to put you on spaces that will allow you to like, okay, that's how it feels at 12 miles, 13 miles. And then from there, the coach can address how to attack those thresholds.
To attack each individual threshold over the course of the race.
Correct.
Are you doing it by heart rate monitoring? Or are you doing it by, like I do a lot of coaching by the twitch in the corner of people's eyes, but that's mostly for fight training. When they start to twitch out and their eye freaks out, they're not processing data anymore.
Right.
Are there things for runners and cyclists that you can see like that?
For me, I'm not a big heart rate fan. I personally can run a whole marathon at threshold at 170 BPMs. I've had coaches before coach me like, hey JP, run at zone 2 at 140 BPM, and I'm just walking. I'm not running. I am a big fan of if this is where my body is comfortable at, I stay there. How do I train athletes for distance, right? What's my metric? That's your question. So on the bike, you have this thing called FTP. So you look for your FTP, so that's the metric for the bike. And from the FTP, there you can get your 80%, your 70%, or 60%.
You ride some crazy bike that like doesn't have gears or something. It's got some kind of slip differential. What is that thing?
So I ride a tri-bike or a road bike. Everything is based on that FTP. So let's just say my FTP is 300 watts.
Okay.
Right, and then I want to race at 230 watts. So I need to either climb hills where that wattage is constant while I'm going for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 20-minute intervals at that pace. So that's how I measure the bike. On the run, I'd measure it with what is my 5K time trial. I do a 5K, let's say it's 18 minutes. So now I know that's my fullest all-out capacity. Whatever that pace is, let's subtract 10 or 20 seconds, and let's do sprints of that, intervals of that.
Okay.
So that'll be our 80%.
So stress management, as he's talking about, it sounds a lot like what I talk about as mental emotional preparedness. Mental emotional preparedness is part of 4 things that we do. So when I think of stress management, I think of this, but this is the way I think of all training. General physical preparedness leads to activity-specific preparedness, leads to sport-specific preparedness, leads to mental emotional preparedness. Mental emotional preparedness is achieved by doing all the other things. At Ganbatte, general physical preparedness will be your strength pieces, your loads, your gymnastic skills, and that you're doing that every day. And then activity-specific preparedness and sport-specific preparedness would be your bike work, your running technique, your sled pulls, all those other things. And all of that would lead you up to your mental emotional preparedness. I do the same thing with my clients that he does with his clients. We just are writing them down in different ways.
yeah.
But good coaches always kind of have a strategy just like this. In my training, general physical preparedness is kettlebells, clubs, maces, and hydrocore. Activity-specific preparedness for me would be like body flow, shin box to shin box stepping, falling down, rolls, and pull-ups, because I would be covering all the basic activity-specific movements of martial arts. Sport-specific preparedness would be actually going to a class or learning choreography of some type, and all of that would lead you to be mentally and emotionally prepared so that you could manage the stress. But the key thing that he's talking up here is do it, train it, get a coach who knows what's going to happen ahead of time, so that when you start to have a freak out because of something in particular, they will have seen it and they will know how to get you around that breakdown or that loss of cognitive function at a certain point. When your heart rate is really high for a very long time, eventually your brain does all kinds of that it won't normally do. Panics, it freaks out, all kinds of things. So good coaches who've done the thing that you're trying to do are always key to this equation.
You know, I like what you said. So this portion that you were talking about, what I love about it is it gives you tools for this. That's very crucial for me as an athlete, especially when I train other athletes, because when I'm racing, you need all those outlets to feed yourself when you're in those spaces. The more tools you have at training, it gives you more confidence when you're racing. So when you're dealt with something like that, I'm not hitting my paces, what did I forget? Oh, maybe I forgot to eat.
Yeah.
Eat
something.
Right.
Doing data, all this other stuff.
Right. And you know what's funny, dude? What's funny is, a good example is a flat. And you're trying to hit this amazing time frame on your bike. What the fuck do you do? Do you just go like call it quits in the race? Or you patch the flat and still try to win it? So what are the tools for you to win the fucking race still? So
that is mental emotional preparedness. Getting a flat on a bike in 100 miles is pretty, it sucks if it's in the first 10 miles because you're so far behind at that point that you're in a lot of trouble. But that's the thing that's different. Are you gonna quit or are you gonna find a way to solve the problem? And have you been prepared to solve the problem? If you don't have a flat kit on your race bike, you're not ready. Your mental emotional preparedness had failed at that point. So know what you need to do, and figuring out how to do it is a huge part of this. This has been Mark Wildman and JP of
Ganbatte Fitness.
We're gonna make more videos because we're nerds.
All right, we are.